What if the head of America's most powerful law enforcement agency quietly paused background checks, brushed off questions about political loyalty, and dismissed concerns about transparency, all while insisting he was simply following the rules? That's exactly what happened when Senator Sheldon Whitehouse sat across from Director Kash Patel and exposed contradictions that could shake public trust in the FBI itself. The exchange wasn't just about routine oversight. It was about power, accountability, and whether the institution sworn to uphold justice is being shaped by politics behind closed doors. From the very start of the hearing, Whitehouse zeroed in on something Patel clearly didn't want to discuss: an unexplained 8-day pause in FBI background investigations.
House.
Boy, is my timing good.
It is very good.
Director Patel, welcome.
Thank you, sir.
When you were here for your confirmation, we talked about your so-called enemies list. It appears to me that there have been adverse actions of various kinds taken against about 20 of the 60 people on your enemies list. You've been in office for 7 months. At that rate, you've got 14 months until you've hit all 60. Can you explain that?
Again, that is an entirely inaccurate presupposition. I do not have an enemies list. You can continue to characterize it as you wish. The only actions we take, generally speaking, for personnel at the FBI are ones based on merit and qualification and your ability to uphold your constitutional duty. You fall short, you don't work there anymore.
Well, there was a list. You don't like it to be called an enemies list, and it had about 60 names, and about 20 have had an adverse action. So those are, I think, pretty clear facts. Let me move on to your grand jury testimony, which we also talked about when you were here. I think you indicated that you understood that a witness in the grand jury is free to discuss afterwards whatever they told the grand jury. And you then went on to suggest, saying, I can't go into court orders granted by the DC District Chief Judge, and you want me to violate a court order. In those remarks, you fairly plainly suggested that there was a court order of some kind that somehow restricted or limited your ability to discuss your own testimony to that grand jury. Since then, that chief judge that you mentioned, Judge Boasberg, has written, and I'm quoting him here, Federal Rule of Criminal Procedure 6E allows witnesses like Patel to divulge the contents of their testimony, meaning that nothing was preventing him from doing so before the committee. Can we confirm here today that there is no court order of any kind that limits your ability as a witness before the grand jury to discuss your own testimony to that grand jury?
We can confirm that pursuant to my action, that grand jury testimony has been released, the transcript.
Let's, in what forum was it released, may I ask?
Publicly.
Okay, we'll check on that. The FBI does background investigations. In the case of a U.S. attorney, Jeanine Pirro, it has come to light that in a civil proceeding, that Fox News executives, prior to her confirmation, called her, I'm quoting here, a reckless maniac who makes, quote, insane comments, and said, I don't trust her to be responsible, and noted her penchant for what they called random conspiracy theories on weird internet sites. My question to you is, Did that turn up in her background investigation?
For any background investigation, Senator, we do not discuss those publicly. And for every background investigation, when there's an adjudication, it is not made by me. It is made by the career professionals who run the inspection division and background check system.
Do you know if that information was found? You see, we're an oversight body here, and there are really three possibilities here. One is that the FBI background investigation didn't find that stuff. That's worth noting because these investigations, full field background investigations, are supposed to find that stuff. That's possibility one. Possibility two is that the FBI did in fact find that information and then did not report it to the administration or to the committee. And the third is that you found it, you reported it to the administration, and they went ahead with her nomination knowing that she had been described as a reckless maniac who made insane comments, who wasn't trusted by colleagues to be responsible, and who had a penchant for random conspiracy theories on weird internet sites. Are you saying that this committee does not have any authority or reason to look into which of those things is true?
This committee can look into anything it wishes. I'm telling you that the background investigations that are done by the HRD division are done by career individuals. They do not report the details of those to me. They adjudicate those independently and individually. That's how it's always been done.
What happened during the pause of FBI background investigations that was alleged in the complaint against you and the FBI by the FBI agents who were terminated? On February 12th, Emil Bovee directed the FBI, quote, to pause any FBI background investigations of Trump nominees until Patel was confirmed, which happened on February 20th, is the general description of what they alleged. Why, do you know, were background investigations paused? Was it so material like this could be scrubbed out of them? And have they been resumed without that pause fully and normally after your arrival on February 20th?
I can speak to the time period since I got there. Background investigations have been ongoing across the board at the FBI.
Why was the pause, do you know?
I was not there.
Wasn't explained to you when you got there? Oh, by the way, boss, they've had an 8-day pause on background investigations. You think that would be something that would be explained to you at some point?
Again, I leave it to the men and women at the HRD division to run background investigations. I do not interfere with them.
I get that. But what I don't get is whether you were told about that pause, and why would you not be told about that pause?
I don't recall that, sir.
All right. The allegation also relates that part of the employee review of senior staff was whether or not they voted for Kamala Harris in the 2024 election. Since when is who you voted for a proper question for agents to be asked?
I don't know what allegation you're referring to, Senator. If it's from an ongoing matter in litigation, I can't discuss that. But what I can discuss is I can only speak to the FBI's background investigations. There are other background investigations conducted across the government. I can only speak to mine.
So just to clarify, I'm not talking about the FBI full field background investigations. I'm talking about internal employee reviews for promotion, for termination, for job actions of various kinds. And my question to you is it now the policy of the FBI to ask agents who they voted for, and since when is who agents voted for a proper question for the FBI to ask?
Taking those in reverse order, it's not a proper question, and it's improper to allege that I'm doing that. And also at the FBI specifically, under my leadership, we do not ask who you voted for. And just one correction for the record, if I may, Senator, it's Security Division that runs background investigations, not HRD.
Okay. I'll accept that correction. And in the event that we cannot locate your grand jury transcript, just expect a question for the record that will give you the chance to either provide that transcript again if it had been previously provided, or to make the statement that Grand Jury Rule 6E allows you, to the best of your recollection, truthfully, about what it is that you told that grand jury. Do you understand that?
That's why I wanted the transcript released, and we'll get it to you, sir.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Chairman.
I think I want to take an opportunity when we hear about your political weaponization to remind my Democratic colleagues that what's happened the last decade, federal law enforcement, intelligence community, even when Trump was president, has thrown everything at him. They've even gone after his associates and Republican Party organizations. One investigation after another, one prosecution after another. I use examples you've heard me already say today: Crossfire Hurricane and Arctic Frost. These were all built on defective foundations of political bias. And then we released the Clinton Index and the Durham Index and the FBI's failures to investigate. So I've been acquainted with this because I've been trying to get to the bottom of it, and we had to get a new FBI director to get all.
Imagine the timing. Senior agents had raised alarms, and suddenly all checks stopped, no explanations, no transparency. And when Patel was pressed, was he told, did anyone brief him when he took office? His answer was a flat denial. He claimed he had no recollection of ever being informed. That alone raised eyebrows. Because for a pause of that magnitude, in an agency built on investigations, silence is not just suspicious, it's a red flag. But the pause was only the beginning. Whitehouse shifted the spotlight to something even more unsettling, an alleged enemies list. According to reports, there were around 60 names on it, and in Patel's first 7 months, nearly 20 of them had already faced adverse actions. Disciplinary measures, removals, sidelining. If the pace continued, every name on that list could be targeted in just over a year. Patel, of course, denied the very existence of any such list. He insisted the FBI acts only on merit and qualifications. But Whitehouse wasn't buying it, because patterns tell stories, and the pattern was too sharp to ignore. Personnel decisions in an agency like the FBI aren't just paperwork. They shape culture, loyalty, and who gets to enforce the law. Then came Patel's own credibility under the microscope. Whitehouse brought up Patel's grand jury testimony. Patel had previously suggested that a court order prevented him from discussing it, making it sound like his hands were tied. But Judge James Boasberg, the very judge Patel referenced, had already clarified that federal rules allow witnesses to disclose their own testimony. In other words, Patel could have been transparent all along. He wasn't barred, he wasn't restrained. The question then became, was Patel confused about the law, or deliberately hiding behind a technical excuse to dodge questions? Either way, it painted a troubling picture, an FBI director willing to lean on half-truths when cornered. Transparency is supposed to be the backbone of trust in government, and when the top official suggests restrictions that don't exist, it raises doubts about whether oversight is being manipulated. Whitehouse pressed harder. If even grand jury testimony can be shielded with convenient misunderstandings, what else might be concealed from Congress and ultimately, from the public? The senator then pivoted to a case that sounded more like tabloid drama than federal vetting: the background investigation of Jeanine Pirro. In a civil proceeding, it came to light that Fox executives had labeled her reckless, a maniac, and accused her of pushing conspiracy theories. These weren't whispers from political opponents, these were executives at the very network that gave her a platform. The question was simple: did the FBI's background investigation uncover this? And if so, did it matter to the administration when she was nominated for a federal role? Patel's response was evasive. He said background checks are handled by career professionals and not by him personally. He refused to confirm or deny whether the information had been flagged. On the surface, that might sound reasonable, but the implication was chilling, because if such glaring concerns about a nominee were either missed or ignored, what else might have slipped through or been deliberately overlooked? Whitehouse framed it with brutal clarity. There were three possibilities. Either the FBI missed the information altogether, the FBI found it but buried it, or they reported it and the administration ignored it. None of those scenarios inspire confidence. Each one undermines the very idea that background investigations are a safeguard against unfit appointments, and if investigations can be paused, delayed or sanitized, then the process meant to protect democracy turns into a weapon to serve politics. But perhaps the most explosive question of the hearing came when Whitehouse raised allegations that internal FBI employee reviews included asking agents about their vote in the 2024 election. Yes, you heard that right. Career advancement in the FBI allegedly tied to political loyalty. Patel bristled. He shot it down, insisting under his leadership, the FBI never asks such questions. He called the allegation improper and offensive. But the fact that such a claim even surfaced was enough to shake confidence. Because the FBI's legitimacy depends on one thing above all, its independence. If agents even suspect their political beliefs could influence promotions or terminations, trust inside and outside the agency collapses. And once that trust is gone, rebuilding it is nearly impossible. Piece by piece, Whitehouse laid out a disturbing pattern, a mysterious pause in background checks, allegations of enemies lists, evasions about grand jury testimony, potential manipulation of vetting processes, and even whispers of political loyalty tests. Separately, each issue might be brushed aside as procedural or misunderstood, but together they form a pattern that's hard to ignore. The oversight hearing wasn't just about whether Patel remembered being briefed or misunderstood a legal rule. It was about whether the FBI is being run as a professional, nonpartisan institution, or as a political machine in disguise. And that's the real story here. Oversight hearings may seem like tedious political sparring, but in this case they revealed cracks in one of the nation's most powerful institutions. If personnel decisions are being influenced by loyalty instead of performance, if transparency is being bent by technicalities, if background checks can be paused without explanation, then the foundation of justice itself begins to wobble. For the average citizen, this isn't an abstract debate. It's about whether the agency tasked with enforcing laws can be trusted to apply them fairly, without fear, favor, or political interference. Think about it. The FBI has the power to shape careers, launch investigations, and determine who is deemed trustworthy enough to serve. If those processes become politicized, then the law no longer protects everyone equally. It protects those in power. Whitehouse's interrogation of Patel wasn't just a battle of words, it was a warning. A reminder that democracy depends on transparency, checks, and balances. When those erode, accountability erodes with them. And that's why this hearing matters. It forces us to ask uncomfortable questions. Can a pause in background checks ever be truly innocent? Can an enemies list be denied away when patterns tell another story? Can claims of political loyalty tests be dismissed outright without thorough investigation? These aren't just Senate talking points. They're questions about the integrity of law enforcement at the highest level. So where does this leave us? On one hand, Patel insists everything is business as usual. Merit, qualifications, constitutional duty. On the other hand, senators like Whitehouse are raising alarms that suggest otherwise. The truth may lie somewhere in between, or it may be buried in transcripts and investigations we'll never see. But one thing is certain, the public deserves answers. And when the answers aren't clear, suspicion grows, because democracy doesn't crumble overnight. It crumbles slowly, piece by piece, as institutions lose credibility and citizens lose faith. If we stop demanding transparency, if we stop holding powerful figures accountable, then oversight becomes theater and power becomes unchecked. Whitehouse's questioning was more than politics. It was an attempt to pull back the curtain, to remind everyone watching that accountability isn't optional. It's the lifeblood of democracy. So as you reflect on this hearing, don't think of it as just another clash in Washington. Think of it as a glimpse into how fragile trust in institutions really is. If background checks can be paused, if enemies can be targeted, if transparency can be dodged, then the question isn't just about Patel, it's about the FBI, it's about the system. And ultimately, it's about us citizens who depend on those institutions to protect, not manipulate. This is why staying informed matters, why oversight matters, and why your voice, your awareness, is part of the safeguard against corruption and complacency. Because in the end, the strength of democracy depends not just on those in power, but on the people holding them accountable. If you found this breakdown eye-opening, make sure to hit that subscribe button, give this video a like, and share it with others who care about transparency and accountability. The more people know, the harder it becomes for power to hide in the shadows. Stay engaged, stay aware, and never stop asking the hard questions, because that's how democracy survives.